Welcome to Always Real Talk. I'm Kwame Brown. In the studio, we have Markus Batchelor. That's right, Markus Batchelor, who is the former youth mayor from the Mayor's Youth Leadership Institute, as well as he is the representative, that's right, the state board representative representing Ward 8, dealing with all educational matters in Ward 8. Markus, welcome to Always Real Talk.
Kwame, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, great. Look, thank you for taking time. Thank you for coming on. Let's jump right into it. You are running for the at-large council seat in the District of Columbia as an independent. Why Markus and why now?
Yeah, well, I'll start with why now because I think that is a really important question. When I entered this race almost a year ago, it was because I thought that so many of the urgent issues ahead of us as a city and so many of the critical decisions that are going to be made from the council over the next 4 years on issues like public education, affordable housing, public safety. I thought that because all of those critical issues that were going to be made over the next 4 years were going to acutely impact communities that look like mine, but we're also going to impact the forward direction of the council, not just for the next 4, but the next 40 years. I knew that it was important to have not just folks with the right experience at the table and on the council, but really folks with the right perspective. And that leads me to why me. Not only have I spent the last 6 years serving my community in elected office, the last 4 on the State Board of Education, but also 2 years before that as an advisory neighborhood commissioner. I've spent the last decade working on the ground, both in civil service and government, but also in nonprofit and grassroots organizing, working to bridge some of these deep divides that this city now has to close if we're going to make it a city that works for everyone. And so I think we need that breadth of experience of not just working on these issues, but living them in so many ways. And as a graduate of the Marionberry Youth Leadership Institute, as a third generation Washingtonian from Congress Heights, I know what it's like to bear the brunt of our city's inequalities. And I've worked for 10 years or more to close them. And so I'm excited about advancing that work and doing more for my neighbors on the council.
Well, I want to go right into it because you are one of the candidates, and there's some that are ANC commissioners or have been ANC commissioners. There's some that have been on the council. There's some that have worked for the council. And you are currently an elected official on the Board of Education. So you clearly understand the policy perspective. You mentioned education, public housing, and public safety. Are those your 3 top issues? Or if not, what are the 3 top issues that you would like to focus if you was to become an independent at-large member?
Yeah, I think that those are critical issues to the work that I'll be looking forward to doing, but I know that the council must do over the next few years if we're really going to close our gaps and make sure that everyone can thrive in this city. Clearly, I think we need to more aggressively expand the production of truly affordable housing across income levels. I'll be an advocate for that in making sure that not only we expand opportunity for quality housing for folks, but that we also expand security for those who are just a paycheck away from homelessness as well, especially in the wake of COVID-19. Yes, education has to be one. I've spent the last 4 years on the State Board of Education, 2 of them as vice president of the board, with a front row seat to what it looks like to see the schools with the most need and the students with the most need get the least investment and see the least progress. And I know that we can do better as a city, and those will be things I'll be tackling as well. So economic security, affordable housing, we've got to make sure that as folks return back to work, workers are safe. But that they're also going to workplaces that provide them the protections to take a day off when they're sick, or to make sure that they have protection and PPE while they're on the job. All of those things I'll be focused on day one. But there's so much that we have to do to really bridge the deep divides in the city.
I want to give you a chance to talk about education because you are on the State Board of Education. You represent Ward 8. And most of the people that have come on the show had talked about Ward 8 as being one of the greatest wards that produce students, and also one of the least wards that produce based on the educational outcomes. There's no secret there are low educational outcomes. We got that. We also
Right.
understand that there's superstars. We're looking at one right now, which is yourself. So, what have you been able to accomplish as a state board education member over your term that you can bring to the council and actually expand? That's the first question. The second one is, what are the two key items that you would start to work on day one if you became a council member as it relates to education?
Okay, yeah, for sure. So I think when it comes to what we've been able to accomplish together over the last 4 years, I said when I ran 4 years ago that my role as a State Board of Education member was going to be twofold. One, it was to advocate for a better quality of education for students in Ward 8 and across the city, but it was also to advocate for a better quality of life. And I've always operated in the philosophy, and I think it's true that strong schools are the center of strong communities. And so from day one, I advocated to make sure that schools in our communities weren't just hubs for high quality instruction, which they should be, but also hubs for the resources that students and families need to be successful. And so I worked really hard to urge our city leaders and worked with folks on the council to make sure that we secure more funding for the community school model, where schools are able to hire a full-time community school manager that coordinates partnerships that fill the needs of families, students, educators inside the school building and builds partnerships outside. And over my 4 years on the state board, the city's attracted millions of dollars in both local and federal funding to implement community school and connected school programs at school communities like Moton and Anacostia and Ballou that are beginning to do that community building work that is also going to, over time, show real progress. It's going to show that attendance is going to go up, family satisfaction is going to go up, truancy is going to go down, academic achievement is going to go up because we're meeting the basic needs of our students left furthest behind. And when we do that, we put them in a better place to learn. So I'm really proud of that work. The second thing, in terms of what I would do on day one when it comes to public education, clearly we have a once in a generation opportunity in the wake of COVID-19 to fundamentally reimagine what public education looks like for all of our students. And it really means acknowledging for the first time that school has to look different for different students. And so it's going to be about bridging the digital divide, giving our families robust options in terms of virtual distance learning, but also that focused in-person instruction in what I will assume will be a hybrid version for the foreseeable future until we can tamp down this virus. So that'll be one of the first things. But the second thing is something I've been working on over the last 4 years, which is really making sure that family, student, and educator voice is a meaningful part of policy making in our education system. And that means making decision making in our education system more democratic. It means an independent office of the state superintendent, a more empowered state board of education to drive education policy and progress that comes from the grassroots, from our families, from our students, and in the end will give us a better education system in every community because communities are bought in and are a meaningful part of that work. And so those are the things I look forward to doing on day one.
Well, that sounds like an aggressive goal. Now, we know you mentioned education and you laid out your plan, you laid out your vision as it relates to education. You mentioned affordable housing was something that was on your list of items if you were to become an at-large council member. Specifically as it relates to affordable housing, what are the two things that you're going to fight passionately about if you were able to be the at-large member come January 1?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, we have to, in every way possible, attack chronic homelessness at its core. And the first step to doing that is by providing both truly supportive temporary shelters for our families and individuals experiencing homelessness, but also a real ladder to housing security permanently. And what it means is making sure that our government actually meets the statutory requirements for producing affordable housing for those making 30% of the annual median income and below. And if you look at the money we're spending pretty consistently over the last 5 or 6 years, we've actually missed those statutory goals and those statutory requirements for truly affordable housing for our lowest income families. So I'll be focused on that. But it's also about breaking the cycle of generational poverty. And it means that communities like our public housing communities have to be hubs for the resources that families need to move into the middle class. It means that we need to provide security so that when folks do rent those apartments or buy that first home, that they're not burdened with skyrocketing taxes or an unstable rental market that threatens their housing security from the gate. We've got to do all of those things. And I think that those are the things that I'll most acutely focus on as we start the work on the council.
Now, some have labeled you, well, many have labeled you, and I think you've used the word also progressive, as a progressive candidate. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll say, I think that there are people who take that in different ways, but yeah, I'll take the mantle of progressive, where I believe that the era of small ideas is over, and we really need to lean into bold solutions to some of our most entrenched issues, right? Racial justice, poverty, environmental security, and environmental resiliency. All of those things. We know that there are bold solutions that are working around the country, and those are the things that I'll fight for. And so, in that sense, yeah, I'll consider myself a progressive as well.
Well, I wanted you to define that and what that meant to you, because it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to define what that meant to you, and how does that basically work with you as you, if in fact you was to become an at-large member. And when it becomes progressive in some of your policies, they're all funding requirements that is associated with the direction that you want to take this city to make it a better place for everyone. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I make no qualms that there are ways that we should, as a city, invest more. But I also, being both on the ground, but also being on the other side, and for the last 2 years, helping to run a small independent agency in our government, understand that sometimes it's not about investing more, but investing better. And so every opportunity I ask our city and my colleagues on the council to dig deeper on those priorities that we should put front and center. I'll also challenge us to figure out ways that we can invest differently to meet the needs of our residents. And so, I don't, come into this work with rose-colored glasses. I understand that governing is hard, and that in the wake of COVID-19, our financial outlook is also going to be much more difficult. But if we want to build the type of equity in this city that we require, both in the short term, but in the long term, to make sure that folks like me and you, Black and brown folks born in this city, aren't permanently pushed out and relegated from the city, quite frankly, that they built, we've got to make investments now to build that equity. And so I'll be unapologetic about prioritizing those things, while also realizing that our financial stability is important. As a young person born in the city in the middle of the crack and cocaine epidemic, when the city was on the verge of financial ruin, I've seen the other end of that. But I know that there's more that we can do as a city, and I'll challenge my colleagues and our communities to do that as well.
Now, as you look to move forward, and you've laid out your vision, you've laid out what you want to do. It seems as me, everyone tries to label you progressive, but you have laid out another sensible path forward in terms of taking the taking the resources that we currently spend and spending them better. And you mentioned the State Board of Education, in which you were able to do that. Can you specifically name anything that you spearheaded at the State Board of Education that reallocated those resources in a better way?
Yeah, well, I'll say I think well, I'll say first and foremost, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, we just like every other agency had to lean in and give back money that we were allocated earlier in the budget cycle in order to meet the critical needs that all of government had to fulfill in response to the pandemic, which means that, in a year where we had robust research planned, where we had, a task force that was going to start a multi-year, multi-million dollar process to rewrite our social studies standards. That year, we had to give back 40% of our non-personnel funds back to the DC treasurer. And so right now, I'm working with my colleagues to figure out how we still accomplish some of those goals, how we still keep that work on track, while also making sure that we're meeting the obligations to our employees at the state board, but also to district government as a whole. And so we're making that work. Right, we've been able to maintain some of our research. We've been able to move money around to better invest it, and we didn't balance it on the back of our employees. Right, unlike most other district government, where employees, quite frankly, are going to be cheated out of a cost of living increase for the next 4 years, we've been able to maintain through reinvestment and sound investment at the state board a cost of living increase for our hardworking employees. And I think we need more of that ingenuity and more of that critical thinking at the council as well.
Absolutely. Now, I want to go to our 5 questions that we've asked every single candidate. And this, once again, it's a yes or no, or agree or disagree. Here we go. School choice.
Agree.
Eliminating gun laws.
Disagree.
I'm sorry?
Eliminating gun laws.
Eliminating the guns in D.C. Getting rid of the gun laws in D.C.
Disagree.
Taxing the wealthy.
Agree.
Mayor Bowser doing a good job.
Somewhat agree.
Defund police.
See, I would like a lot of context there, but I'll say agree. Hopefully we can talk about that later.
All right, so it's agree or disagree, but once again, here we have it. Markus Batchelor, the former youth mayor of Washington, D.C., as well as the current State Board of Education representative in Ward 8. Hey, Markus, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. Good luck out there on the campaign trail.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you.
All right. If it's always real talk, you know it's going to be real.